Welcome. This is Tigrai Television English program. Thanks for joining us. Here are the news for this hour. Today marks the 1143th Eid al-Adha celebrations, marking the Prophet Muhammad's journey from Mecca to Medina. Like Muslims across the world, Muslims in Maqala held a ceremony at the heart of the city, marking the holiday, and we spoke to some of these residents that tell us about the severe impact of the siege, including how it's affected their religious practice. For more, Sarah Kalali.
For the second year in a row, Muslims across Tigray have celebrated Eid al-Adha, completely severed from the world and living under siege. While celebrations were peaceful, Tigrayan Muslims have once more been denied the right to take on the pilgrimage to Medina, a sacred ritual for Muslims across the world, and according to Jamal Tsahaye, an obligation for all Muslims who are able to make the journey.
The siege has been difficult for Muslims, especially because we are obliged to go to Hajj. We haven't been able to over the past 2 years due to the ongoing siege. Even if we set aside going to Hajj, we have nothing to eat because banks are closed, as well as all telecommunication services. Everything is closed. It is difficult to think about Hajj while living under such conditions.
Saeed Hussein says he feels abandoned by the world that seems to have all but forgotten the plight of Tigrayans living under siege.
أنا بناتي ما نمسب عدمو أخل سب.
Anyone Muslim of age can go to Mecca. I don't know how we could be denied this right. I wonder if Muslims around the world know about us. I wonder whether the world knows what is happening here and what kind of conditions we are living under. Tigrayans accepted the sheltered Muslims persecuted in Mecca.
Historically, Tigray is known for being a safe haven for Muslims when Prophet Muhammad and his followers were being persecuted and forced to leave Mecca. But Saeed feels this important fact in Muslim history might have been forgotten.
They found shelter and were accepted into Nagash. Tigrayans say that they should not be harmed and should be allowed to live where they wish. I wonder if they know this, what Tigray symbolizes. To all the Maliks living in Saudi, Nagash, the one mentioned in the Quran, is here in Tigray.
Jamal also asked us to help him pass along this message to his loved ones who he hasn't been able to reach for over a year due to communications blackout.
I have a sister in Australia and other family members in Addis Ababa, including my mother and siblings. I want to wish them a good Eid al-Mubarak.
For more than a year now, Tigrayans have been severed from the world, unable to access their savings, with no access to telecommunication services or medical supplies. But what remains still today, it appears, is their hope that the world will act to alleviate this catastrophic humanitarian situation.
Islam was first introduced to Tigray through refugees seeking shelter from persecution in their homeland. They came to Tigray where they would be greeted and provided a place where they could exercise their religion. There, the refugees would build the first mosque in Africa and one of the oldest in the world, forever cementing Tigray's place in Islamic history. For more, Saron Tsagai has the details.
Hajj is the annual pilgrimage made by Muslims to the holy city of Mecca in Saudi Arabia. It is done annually to commemorate the Prophet Muhammad's journey from Mecca to Medina in 622 AD. The Hijrah also marks the beginning of the Muslim calendar. This pilgrimage is the fifth of the fundamental Muslim practices and institutions known as the 5 pillars of Islam. Every year, about 2 million Muslims from around the world perform the Hajj. It's said that the rite serves as a unifying force in Islam by bringing followers of diverse background together in a religious celebration. The Hajj is incumbent on all Muslims who are physically and financially able to make the pilgrimage. But for the past 2 years, Tigrayan Muslims have been living under siege, unable to travel into or out of Tigray, and unable to take part in this fundamental practice of their religion.
ዓሚ ኣብ ጦርነት ግዜ ስለ ነበርና ናይ ጦርነት ቀጠና ስለነበረ
Last year we couldn't go on Hijra because we were in an active war zone. The quota for Ethiopians was also limited, but this year Saudi Arabia announced that Muslims from all over the world are allowed to come to Hajj, but unfortunately Muslims of Tigray have not been able to take part.
Islam was introduced into Tigray in the 7th century AD when the first followers of the Prophet Muhammad, after being prosecuted and oppressed in their own land by Quraysh tribes of Mecca for their religious beliefs, Prophet Muhammad searched for a safe place and compassionate person who could grant a safe hideout and protection for his followers. He chose the Aksumite kingdom and ordered his followers, including his wife and son, to take refuge with the Christian king in the land of Habasha. This would be the first Muslim settlers. They would be warmly greeted and provided with a place to practice their religion. They would build a mosque, the first mosque in Africa and one of the oldest in the world, in eastern Tigray, in a town today known as Najash.
When the Prophet Muhammad was chased by the Quraysh people in his country, the first country that he sent his disciples to was to the Nagash in Tigray. And the king at the time, called Nugus Armaha, open-handedly received the Muslims. He said, "You will not be prosecuted, even if you practice your religion." Therefore, Tigray became also the home of the Muslims.
Tragically, within the first 2 months of the war on Tigray, the historic mosque was struck by heavy artillery and later looted by Ethiopian and Eritrean troops, shattering long-held norms protecting religious sites in times of war.
Everything you see here was destroyed then. They were using heavy artilleries. After that, we were watching them while they were stealing the equipments. One soldier told me to go inside or that he will kill me alongside other imams. They were trying to take the refrigerator, but they were too heavy. Other than the refrigerator, they took every machineries and utensils they found.
The Muslim community has also been devastated by the war on Tigray. Unable to access basics such as food and medicine, Muslims in Tigray are forced to celebrate Eid under brutal siege. They say that the Muslim community globally must get attention to the disaster unfolding in Tigray, land of the second Mecca. Currently, there is a catastrophe unfolding in the land of King Najashi, the safe haven for the children of Muhammad, and an immediate action is required to avert the deaths of millions as the blockade continues to tighten.
Our reporters visited the home of Abriha Said, a mother of 4 who is suffering from multiple chronic illnesses and has been forced to stop her work and sell all her belongings just to afford medication. Not only that, but Abriha's children live in the Oromia region, meaning she will have no way to communicate with them this holiday. For more, Aragawi Gabram Mikhail.
Abriha Said is a mother of 4 and living here in Makale. Abriha used to live with her family in Metu in the Oromia region before she decided to come to Tigray to care for her mother some 8 years ago. Her mother suffered for years and finally passed away last year following the start of the war. Now Abriha is alone in Makale, far from her husband and family in Oromia. Before the siege, Abriha used to make a living by selling herbs and scents in the local market. Something she has been forced to stop due to her health.
قفقاف شيط نيرة اللي دو تأثير كل أنا سحزي خدي لما قفقاف زناي عداقة نجار زي قرويتشو منا من لله كل ده زي مسايل لله سحزي وقت أمونقو أنا دم حامي ما حد يجيو هو.
I used to sell herbs and scents at the local market, but after I got sick, I wasn't able to work, and so I had to stop.
Abriha suffers from multiple chronic illnesses including asthma, diabetes, and blood pressure. She also says she has a swelling near her belly that has further complicated her health condition.
حمشة نقول حمشة مشيت وحط الله بأني واقع زيت لو حتغبن تخبرك قنسير أخو ويتجزعك قنسير أخو زي محوات الحمد لله.
I take a lot of medication day and night, but I haven't been able to see any improvements so far. The swellings on my back and belly have not shown any improvements. It just keeps getting bigger. I asked my doctor to take it out, but he said that wouldn't be possible because the swelling is so close to my heart. That is why I breathe so heavily I can't move as I wish either.
Abriha says the medications she needs to treat her condition are unavailable or extremely overpriced due to the siege and borrow money so she can afford them.
أقعدي اللي شط اللخ فوتي خنخن مجزمن حانيت خس أنت اللخ يلي شط اللخ.
I have nothing now. I had to sell everything and have even started to borrow money from others so I can cover my medical expenses. I have sold almost everything.
Abriha, with no money to cover even her medical expenses, says she will not able to celebrate Eid al-Adha this year. Not only that, because the siege, she will not even able to hear from her children and husband this holiday.
أتصيبكم هم زاجركم والكل لبركم تتوصل ما مسانتني بالله. تحرها لك. ألقى خاتنصف. من صاف خاتنصف.
I have nothing at home. If I had money, I would have started preparation by now. And because transportation is closed, we cannot go outside Tigray. I can't be with my children. I can't even call them because there is no telecommunication service. So all I can do is just pray that the Almighty God will solve this so I can meet my children again.
Abriha's story is just one of the millions across Tigray separated from their family members due to the ongoing siege and unable to access their savings or humanitarian assistance as the Ethiopian government continues its inhuman siege on the region.
Tigray's Bureau for Agriculture and Rural Development has reported the death of 2 people due to anthrax, a communicable disease that can be transmitted from animals to people. The Directorate for the Office of Animal Health Care says that lack of medication and the destruction of close to 90% of the public-owned animals health facilities, in addition to the ongoing siege, has made it difficult to treat animals or track the spread. For more, Mintakitan.
The past 20 months of conflict has devastated essential infrastructures in Tigray, including Tigray's animal health care system. According to data from Tigray's Bureau of Agriculture and Rural Development, there were more than 200 government-owned animal clinics across Tigray before the war broke out in November of 2020. Today, just 12% of these health clinics are still functional, after most were deliberately looted and systematically destroyed by Ethiopian forces and their allies from Eritrea. This has led to the spread of disease that is killing both animals and people. According to Dr. Gabriel Gese, director of Tigray's Animal Health Office, anthrax, a communicable disease that can be transmitted from animals to human beings, has started to spread in the lowlands of Tigray, resulting in the deaths of 2 people and 23 animals so far.
Anthrax affects both animals and human beings. It had almost disappeared from Tigray, but it has now reappeared in different areas, especially in the lowlands like Samra, Lale Oraro, Adamba, Kholathenben, and some parts of western Tigray. In Adasheti, a village in Lale Oraro, 34 people and 30 animals have been infected, while 23 animals and 2 people have already lost their lives.
According to Dr. Gabru, lack of vaccination and medication for animals remains a challenge and is devastating the lives of many in rural communities.
In early June of this year, more than 241,225 animals had some form of illness. Of these, 38,857 are already dead.
Because of these challenges, Dr. Gabru says alternative methods of treatment should be used to treat the animals infected with the bacteria.
The sick ones should be treated using traditional ways, but the dead ones should be buried deep, like 3 meters below the ground. An animal that is affected with anthrax should not be eaten.
The deliberate destruction of health facilities coupled with the siege have had a devastating impact on the livelihoods of the Tigrayans, a situation that is yet to show any improvement more than 3 months into a humanitarian truce declared by the Ethiopian government itself.
A new report by UN OCHA indicated that over 2.93 million children in Ethiopia are out of school. The report said this was mainly due to the conflicts that have risen in different parts of the region that has forced more than 2.5 million children to drop out of school, while the drought in southern and eastern parts of the country has forced over 400,000 students out of school. The report further indicated that in the war-torn region of Tigray, about 85% of schools lacked necessary materials like desks and blackboards needed to resume schooling. It is to be recalled that in the 8-month-long occupation of Tigray by invading forces, schools and other public facilities were the main target of destruction. The report also pointed out that high humanitarian needs are likely to continue well into 2023 due to expanding drought and increased violence, while in 2022 over 20 million people in the country are likely to require humanitarian assistance. Tigray Pharmacy Association issued a statement on Friday stating concerns regarding the continued obstruction of medical supplies coming to Tigray, making almost all forms of medical supplies unavailable to patients in dire need. The association said supplies that have so far reached the region are too insignificant as to have any real impact in terms of addressing the medical emergency on the ground, especially in the light of the destruction of 80% of health facilities in the region. For more, Abel Zagavo.
On Friday, Tigray Pharmacy Associations issued a statement regarding the continued obstruction of medical equipments coming into Tigray by Ethiopian authorities, calling the act as a clear violation of international norms and standards. The association recalled the provision of medical facilities in Tigray had reached over 80% before the war broke out and has now declined to nearly zero as a result of the deliberate destruction of Tigray health system by Ethiopian forces and their allies from Eritrea. The statement thanked international organizations, although little, for providing medical equipment to the people of Tigray, but emphasized that very little could be expected to change as much of Tigray's health system remains broken due to systematic destruction of 80% of Tigray's health system. The association emphasized on the need to lift the siege on Tigray and allow unfettered humanitarian access to alleviate the health crisis in the region. It also noted that essential services such as banking and telecommunication should be immediately restored, criticizing on the international community's failure to give attention to crisis in Tigray as it did to Ukraine. The association called on international organizations to serve the humankind equally regardless of race, religion, or ethnic background.
It's been 2 years since the outbreak of the coronavirus, and over the time the world has been able to develop vaccines to effectively curb the spread of the virus. But here in Tigray, the blockade on the region has meant that vaccines have not been able to reach Tigrayans, putting the lives of many in danger. The Bureau of Health announced that the region's capital has positivity rate of 30%, with 2 to 3% of those patients dying due to the virus. Yesterday, the World Health Organization and UNICEF announced that a batch of COVID vaccines have reached Tigray. For more, Salome Takhla reports.
The novel coronavirus, first identified in 2019, has since taken the lives of millions of people across the world, crushing economies and testing the health system of some of the strongest nations in the world. Tigray's response to the pandemic was once initially ideated, but after the start of the war on the region, there has been virtually no resources allocated to preventing the spread of the virus and treating those who have been infected. The world has developed multiple vaccines to fight the pandemic and has undertaken multiple rounds of vaccinations. But in Tigray, where the Ethiopian government has maintained a blockade on all items and services, Tigrayans have been denied access to vaccination. Now, almost a year and a half since the world started to distribute vaccination, the first batch of coronavirus vaccination has arrived. The World Health Organization and UNICEF have managed to deliver vaccines against COVID-19 into Tigray. Michael Mwanda, Operations Manager for the World Health Organization in Tigray, says that after more than a year of the blockade, it had been a relief that vaccines have been able to reach the region.
COVID-19 vaccination has substantially altered the course of this pandemic. This we know. It has saved millions of lives globally. However, there is inadequate access. In some countries, in some regions, particularly the region of Tigray. And this has limited the impact of the vaccine to save lives. Recently, there is a publication by The Lancet that has documented that since the start of COVID-19 vaccination in December 2020, it is estimated that 20 million lives have been saved by the vaccine. So we're glad that Tigray, after 11 months, or let me even say 12 months of no vaccination,
there is a vaccine available.
According to Head of Bureau of Health, Dr. Hagos Godefai, 5 of the 6 COVID-19 testing centers across the state have been destroyed, as a result of which testing has become almost impossible. Dr. Hagos says that Tigray currently has a positivity rate of 30%, of which 2 to 3% lose their lives.
The vaccines that have reached us are only 48% of what should have been delivered. 30% of suspected cases are testing positive. Out of this, 2 to 3% are dying. This is in Malala alone. We don't know how many people could be dying in rural areas and in areas where we do not run tests. COVID-19 has become a big threat for us, especially to those with chronic illnesses and the elderly.
The deliberate destruction to Tigray's health system by Ethiopian forces and their allies from Eritrea has left virtually all Tigrayans with no access to healthcare, endangering the lives and well-being of many.
And that's it for now. Thanks for watching.